instant reactions to being out there with officials and everything today?
Yeah, it was good. It gave us an opportunity to, I think in a lot of situations get their interpretation of what they saw. Had a real good one-on-one session with our wideouts and our DBs. A couple flags thrown in those situations, and then the great part with the officials explaining what they saw and why they would call that. So, at times it does what he saw and why he's calling it. I think gives our guys a better understanding. So we got a lot of real quality work. We had one-on-one O-line, D-line. We did some one-on-ones with our linebackers and tight running backs, and also with our outside linebackers against our tight ends. We did them with the DBs. We had a real good 7-on-7 session. So really what we did is we practiced and just integrated the officials into our practice. So.
And when you go live, when you have officials on hand, is it any more live than other full pads practices?
Yeah, because we're tackling to the ground and we're cut blocking and doing all those other things to take people down. So
this is your first chance to really see some of that?
We've done a little bit, but this was probably the most extensive, but still just for part of it, not the old days where we're going to scrimmage for 2 hours and everybody's going to tackle and cut for 2 hours. Because the biggest thing for us is just to get situations. And I think if you look at some of the preseason games that have gone on, everybody said, well, we played in a preseason game, but if you watched part of the Cowboys and the Raiders last night, well, you never got into a goal line situation because the ball was in between the 35s the whole time, and the final score was 3-0. So you have to be able to script it and orchestrate it to get yourself in a goal line situation. You got to script it and orchestrate it so that you can get yourself at end of the half situations, end of the game situations, or you can go through 2 or 3 if you had preseason games against other people where if the game doesn't express itself, if you don't get the ball inside the 20, you never get a chance to work on those things. So everything we did today was really situation oriented, and we got a lot of real good work and get a chance to get it on film and then show our guys when we get to meetings tonight. So.
How did Colt look on his first day back?
He looked good. You guys saw him coming in.
Is he any rust that he had to wear off or anything missing the first week?
I would imagine he's like anybody that missed the first week. So he's certainly not jumping in with the ones right now. He's got to go through a 5-day acclimation period just like any other athlete that we have come in here. So he'll go 2 days in helmets and then 2 days in shells, and then on the 5th day he'll be allowed to put full pads on. So when we were in full 11-on-11 tackling and all that other stuff, he was not involved in any of that today because he didn't have any pads on. So
he's fully clear with you and everything.
Yep.
So he's good to go.
Yep.
Any impressions, instant analysis of the quarterbacks and kind of how they manage some of those situations you put them in?
Back and forth. I look at the film because there were so many scenarios. We went from 2nd and long to red zone to coming out to you got one play at the end of the first half. So we probably got about 15 different situations in, and then it's a chance to look at them. And there's some real good things. But I think for us the biggest thing is we got some things we can teach now after showing them on film. We had a couple kids today where their helmet came off. So they're out. That's the new rule in college football, and then you can't play the next snap. So we got to, kind of talk to those guys. How was their helmet fitted? What was their chin strap like in those situations? Because if it doesn't come off and the officials don't see it purposely taken out by your opponent, then you got to go sit for that play. So we got some, and again, that's a situation where we've addressed and we talked about the new rule changes with our guys. But until you get a chance to implement them, it's really an understanding. So your helmet comes off on a 2nd down. There's a critical 3rd down in the game, and all of a sudden you lose your starting quarterback because his helmet got taken off. That's a big deal. So
is there a level of readiness for the guys on the bench that have to change because of that?
There better be, and that was one of the things about putting us in that situation today is, hey, he's out. Next running back's in the game. So Kenyon Marner's helmet comes off at any time. It's not like I can use a timeout or I can tell the official, hey, let's get another second chance at this. If his helmet comes off during the course of play, he's out for the next play, and that's how it's going to be administered. So the fact that we had officials there to administrate that for us was a pretty good deal for us today. And then we can show those guys on film. And then again, specifically what we're looking for, if there's a kid's helmet who comes off more than once, now how you wearing it, is it fitted the right way? Talk to our equipment guys about what's going on with such and such helmet, because it seems like his helmet is coming off more than anybody else, and that's a big deal for us because we can't afford to lose anybody. So.
How do you feel about your depth at tight end behind Colt with the other guys that are playing there?
Our depth at tight end is not behind Colt. Our depth at tight end is we'll figure out who our starting tight end is when we get there, and it's an open competition. So, there's been nobody declared. The last tight end that started for us is David Paulson. He's playing for the Steelers. So it's an open competition until we get to the first game. And every day I'm encouraged with the young guys. I think Farrell Brown and TJ Daniel specifically are doing a nice job, but we'll see. And I think the biggest thing whenever you have young players is a consistency standpoint. So, some game may have a great practice and then all of a sudden for 2 days they disappear and then they show back up again. So what we're trying to figure out, especially at that position, is really what our depth is, and it's nowhere close to being set right now. So
Is that still your biggest concern?
no, I got concerns with every position, but you had asked me about tight ends, so I answered that question.
Well, I meant in terms of David Paulson. He said that he'd be the hardest guy to replace for this team.
I said he could be the hardest guy to replace. So we'll see as we get going. We got more than 2 weeks here until we get to the first game and see how that expresses. But I think all the kids at that position have the talent to play, but the biggest thing they lack is experience, and we got to see how we can get that crammed in a short amount of time. Just because there's not a proven guy at that position, like in other positions, you lost Michael James, who's the all-time leading rusher here, but you got a guy in Kenyon Barner that has shown that he could have an opportunity to play. You got a guy in Anthony Thomas that's shown he's got an opportunity to play. Really, behind David, there's not a whole lot of depth from an experience standpoint. So that's why it would be a question mark for us.
You mentioned, I think just the other day you said there were some spots where you kind of knew where your number one guy was, and you had to figure out who your
yeah, like we know we'll probably open up on day one with Deion Jordan. I think we'll tap him as
How many of those guys are there? Just a handful?
I haven't even. I would say there's a handful at least. Yeah. Well, I haven't looked at it that way.
Sure.
So, because we haven't. All of our depth right now is talking about trying to figure out who do we think is going to be in our rotation. And the most important question for us, but from a personnel standpoint, is to make sure that Coach Oz understands it, because hey, we really think this kid's going to play a significant amount at this position. That means we need to really make sure where does he fit on your special teams depth chart, and then it's a two-way street. He'll tell us that player X is standing out a ton on special teams. Well, that means we're going to bring him because he can make an impact on us on the special teams. How does he fit into what's going on, at your depth at the position? Because it's unique for us. We got 4 home games. We don't have to deal with the 70-man travel roster until we go until we play our first away game against Washington State. But we're still that's in the back of our mind in terms of how we're going to separate this thing. And really the biggest question is just, what about the freshmen? Because are you going to redshirt them or not redshirt them? And our goal is to win right away. So, we're not saving anybody. We're not building for the future. The future's right now. But we're also not going to play a guy for 3 snaps in a game, and at the end of the year, and you look at his participation, and he played 50 snaps for a season and lost a whole year of eligibility. If we're going to play somebody, we're going to play somebody. So
when it went to 70, it seemed like the rise of specialists. You were more inclined to take like a kickoff specialist or 2 long snappers. Would you take a specialist just on coverage?
Yeah, and we've done that before. We took a couple kids. Caleb Tomasini is a great thing. He never really had he was a scout squad defensive back, but he was a real standout for us on the special teams standpoint. So you find a spot for him. In the NFL, there's guys that are just. Larry Izzo was a special teams demon. The Patriots have one, and Matt Slater, who played in this league, really doesn't have a position. They do it, and they have a 46-man roster on game day. We'll certainly do it with a 70-man roster. So there are kids that are really contending. Their goal is that they may have 2 solid players ahead of them from a position standpoint, but they could be integral members and start on 4 special teams.
Chip, with that, how have the young guys acclimated, especially to today with the hitting and the practice? And
they were good. I've been really pleased with our young guys right now and how they've stepped right in. And the biggest thing that we want our young guys to do is to understand about and for all of our players, we talked about enjoying the process, understanding, it's not about the end result. If you're always worried about the end results, then you're going to miss something along the way. It's about, having that mindset going out to practice that I've got to have a purpose today, and I got to get better at something today. And I think those guys really understand that better than any young group I've had. And that's the one thing I like about this whole team is they really enjoy practice, and they get better when, from day 1 to day 2 to. So it's a real fun group to coach. So,
what about reps today? You talked the other day about getting 180 reps. Were you able to get a lot of reps in today?
We got a lot of reps in, and it was kind of segmented. We're counting the 1-on-1s and the 7-on-7, because we want to get them on tape with the officials. But we got to hustle in there and get some tape watch. That's our biggest dilemma every day is can we get enough film watch before we get our meetings coming up at 7 o'clock. So we got a lot of tape to watch as coaches. Those guys they get a little bit of downtime, but then we're prepared when we go into our meeting with those guys. So.
Have you heard anything new from the NCAA?
Nope. Anything else?